Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. Welcome to the last show of Season 2. This is episode 120 of Season 2. On average this year, I've done, one episode about every 3 days. I can guarantee you I am not going to keep up that pace next year. Okay, it's not going to happen. All right. As you all know, if you've been listening for a little while, I do this for fun, but I also have a small business that I own and operate, and there's a large project coming up next year that's going to take a lot of my time. I'm going to keep the members-only show on Monday morning there. I'm not going to change that. I'm going to dedicate my time to make sure I get that done. I'll probably keep this show going on Tuesday evening, but the Tuesday morning show might have to change just because I don't think I'm going to have enough time to really do it. But I may end up doing like video shows on the Tuesday evening show rather than a science show. I don't know. Or we may just alternate. But I'll be back on like the second or third week in January. It's going to be 3 or 4 weeks because the Christmas break is kind of strange the way it lines up. Okay. I'm going to move quickly tonight. We have a lot to go over. We have comments by Dr. Woods on the grass factor to go over at the end. We have comments by the Earthworks podcast commented on me. We have that to go over on a video comment. We have some labels we're going to go over. We're going to do some math tonight, some cost math that may be useful. Lots of comments, lots of emails, some texts and things like that have gone to the show's phone number. If you want to leave a text or a voicemail over the break or at any time, the phone number is 859-444-4234. And you can always send me comments or questions to my email. They're always in the description of every video. You can always go there and check them out. We're going to get started because I don't want to be here till midnight. Now, let's get to the first comment. First of all, thanks. Well, before I even get going, thanks for all the members. Welcome to the newest member, Shanti. He's the newest pro level member. He joined here today or yesterday. I have a lot of members here tonight. The members are the reason this show is able to stay above water. That's the only reason. Okay. This show makes no money on videos. We don't get any views. There's 1,000 views a video or something, not very many at all. But the members that we have really do make a big difference on paying some of the bills, basically. And any money that's left over goes to fund some of the turfgrass research. And I'm going to go over some of the results of the research I've been going over on the next members only meeting that will happen in January, probably. Okay. I'm going to kind of show what we found, and all that research is essentially funded by you all. When I have soil samples to pay for, when I have shipping I got to pay for, all that stuff comes out of the show funds. And so thank you very much for being a member if you're a member, and if you're not a member and you would like to contribute to turfgrass research, please consider doing so. Oh yes, please, thanks Mike. Please hit the like button. If you don't want to be a member, that's cool, but try to subscribe if you don't mind. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps out the show a lot. Or just comment on the video. Okay, let's get it going. The first comment tonight on the show's voicemail, it says, question for the members only comments and questions episode. In the series on fertilizer, you mentioned that ammonium nitrate was like urea on steroids. One, I don't really remember that. It doesn't really sound like something I'd say, but perhaps I said it. I mean, I'm not denying it, but ammonium nitrate, turfgrass response to ammonium nitrate generally is extremely strong, very, very good compared to urea or ammonium sulfate even. Okay, so it's not out of the possibility that I said that. It just sounds unusual to me. Anyway, first, is that the same as UAN, which is a urea ammonium nitrate? What percentage or pounds of nitrogen from nitrate would be a safe threshold to apply? 0.5 to 1 pounds. And what I answered was this. I answered to this member. It says, good question. I am not aware of any data specifically on nitrate versus, say, ammonium or urea, but you can apply very high rates so long as it is immediately watered in. If you don't water it in, don't call me, okay? As long as you water it in, you're pretty safe. But if you're going to apply it, and if you want a foliar absorption and you're not going to water it in, it will depend on the season, the species, and a lot of different things, a lot of other things it will depend on. But generally, if you know what you're doing, you can go up to 0.3 pounds or maybe even higher, maybe even closer to 0.5 pounds without a whole lot of concern. But if you want to play it safe, I wouldn't apply much more than about 0.3 pounds as a foliar application using, I guess this was urea, or what was he saying? Or nitrogen, or nitrate. These safe thresholds, I give these ranges with great hesitation because you can apply a half pound of nitrogen all day long, and sometimes of the year and be fine. And you can do it at a different time of the year, or the bad time of the year, and just burn everything. Okay. Depending on the homeowners, depending on whether or not they're going to help you out with the water and all sorts of stuff. Okay. But what I recommend you doing is the same thing I recommend doing on granular nitrogen, and that is self-calibrate your nitrogen rates to your location. And I had a great colony meeting this week with a gentleman in Maryland, and he was telling me kind of what his rates are, nitrogen rates are, and how he came to that rate. And, he started at, let's say, 2.5, 3 pounds, and he's slowly worked it down to where he's around this 2.25 pound rate. And that's him self-calibrating. And I would encourage you all to do the same within your locations, even with foliar nitrogen. You get the guidelines or the ranges from your turf research area in your location, wherever it may be. Let's say it says you're free to apply 1 to 3 pounds, whatever it is. You might start at like 2, and you might have to slide it up a little bit to get the response you want, or slide it down a little bit to get the more, to get the response to get the same response, but do it for less money. So self-calibrate within the ranges. Okay, that's what I would recommend you all do with nitrogen. That's what I do. And that way, you're within the boundaries of the university, and you have a great deal of confidence because you've dialed it up or down to meet that need in your area. Okay, good question. Next question. I got a lot to get to. I'm gonna have to move quick. It says, "Hi, Dr. Shaddox. This is gonna be some math, guys, but I'm putting it on here because I get this question fairly regularly, and so if you're interested in trying to figure out mathematics behind nitrogen, just watch this particular clip and pause it and rewind it if you want to." Okay. Sorry, I was a little bit late to the microphone again today, so I'm out of breath. Sorry. Okay, here we go. "I'm in the preliminary planning stages for next year's application. Can you provide the process or formula for calculating the cost of nitrogen per pound? My nitrogen sources will depend on these numbers. Thank you." So I said hi, left his name off. This was an email. I'm going to show you the detailed method, but there are many other straightforward ways. You don't have to do it this way. There's many, many other ways to do it. Okay, this is the way that's very detailed and gives you all the information you would probably ever need to know. But there's other straightforward ways. Step 1, get everything on a 1-ton basis, so everything is apples to apples. So you're going to be dealing with, $30 a bag or $10 a bag or whatever it is. That doesn't work. Well, it can work, but you got to convert everything to bags. Just everything in fertilizer is based on tons. So just convert the 40-pound bag or the 50-pound bag to tons. So if you're paying $40 a bag and it's a 50-pound bag, just multiply it by 40 because there's 40, 50-pound bags in a ton, and you get it on a 1-ton basis. Okay. And then you also need to convert the nitrogen percentage in the bag to ton or pounds of nitrogen in the ton. Okay. I'm going to explain this. So if the price on a 50-pound bag, if the price is on a 50-pound bag, convert it to 2,000 pounds by multiplying the bag by 40. That will be your price per ton. Figure out your pounds of nitrogen per ton by multiplying 2,000 pounds by the percent nitrogen on the bag. If your percent nitrogen is 20, then you have 400 pounds of nitrogen per ton. Then you divide the cost of 1 ton by the pounds of nitrogen in that ton. So if your urea costs $800 per ton, and then it will have 920 pounds of nitrogen because it's 46% nitrogen. Urea is 4600, so it has 920 pounds of nitrogen in it. Then the cost per pound of nitrogen would be $800 divided by 920 pounds, which is $86 per pound of nitrogen. And then I say, in the end, I say, as always, double check my math. I'm a human and I make mistakes. But that process is there. So if I made a mistake in the math, then I'm sure I'll have plenty of haters send me plenty of emails saying I'm wrong. But the concept of the process is all there. So follow that process. You can compare fairly the cost to produce turf grass because we apply fertilizer in pounds of nitrogen, and you should price your fertilizer on pounds of nitrogen. Okay. So the next question he asked was, would that same process work for liquid nitrogen as well? And this question I get a lot. And I understand why it might not be as straightforward, but understand I'm going to show the concept, but also understand I may have messed up on the math, but it's neither here nor there. You'll understand the concept. The concept will work, but not based on a ton. You have to determine the pounds of nitrogen in the solution by multiplying the nitrogen percent by the density of the solution. That will be on the label at the bottom usually. So on almost all these, well, all the liquids, at least, I don't know if every state has the same fertilizer labeling requirements. In fact, I know they don't. But almost all liquid fertilizers will have a density on it. It'll say 10.47 pounds per gallon or 13 pounds per gallon or whatever. Okay, so you need the density. It's very easy. It's on the label. So let's say the solution weighs 10.7 pounds per gallon and the nitrogen percentage is 30%. Then multiply the 10.7 pounds by 0.3 and you will get 3.2 pounds of nitrogen per gallon. So if you buy a 5-gallon jug of 3000 for $200, then you paid $200 for 16 pounds because it's 5 gallons and it's 3.2 pounds per gallon. And there's 16 pounds in that 5 gallons. Then you just divide the $200 by 16 pounds of nitrogen and you know you paid $12.50 per pound of nitrogen. And again, as I stated in this email, don't assume my math is correct, okay? The concept's correct, but don't assume my math's correct. I make mistakes. Okay, I get that a lot. So just pause and rewind it if you ever want to know how to determine the cost per pound of nitrogen in solution or cost per pound of nitrogen in a fertilizer, okay? Next question. YouTube comments from @Connective03. Cold reading in the Barnum Effect Part 2. I did a video entitled that, and he says, I have been following Oli for a while. His yard is amazing. You can't deny his results. I used their EW4H, Earthworks 4H 822 for a season. I had a really good response to it. It's just way too much money. There are more economically efficient ways to get great grass. And I think I made that clear today in this morning's video. The 822 is fine. The 333 is fine. 4600 is fine. 2100 is fine. All these nitrogen sources are perfectly fine. And they will all result in good-looking grass, as Connective mentioned. It just depends on how much money you want to pay for it. That's what it comes down to. There's risks in burning, the greater risks with these soluble materials, particularly DAP and MAP. There's almost no risk with the natural organics, but the cost of the natural organics can be anywhere from 4 or 5 times to as high as maybe 16 times more expensive than straight urea or ammonium sulfate. So it just depends on if you're comfortable and you know how to use it and everything's, A-okay, then go with the nitrogen source that you're comfortable with. But you're going to pay a lot more money for any of these natural organics. There's just no way around it compared to the soluble nitrogen sources. Next question. Karaya 715. I had a video that says, your junk lawn does not bother me. That was from that Nicole Jolly lady. She was in this horrible lawn. And I was like, it doesn't bother me. Why does my nice lawn bother you? That was the point of that comment. And she says, squalor? Her naturally beautiful yard is now squalor? Jesus H, man, what is wrong with you? This is what you spend your time on? Making a stitch video to be a dick? That's great. That's great. These are the type of comments that you got to send, really. I mean, if you're going to be rude and kind of be a jerk, you really got to, be vulgar. Go ahead and just do it all the way. Why pussyfoot around it? Why tiptoe around the bush? Just go on in. I wasn't even, to me, her yard looked horrible. But to her, it didn't. And that's kind of the point. What do I care what your yard looks like? I'm not taking care of your yard. I care what my yard looks like. Your yard doesn't bother me, but Nicole Jolly's yard, to Nicole Jolly seemed like my nice lawn and the way I manage lawns certainly bothered her. You can't be applying these pesticides. You can't be applying this fertilizer. It's going to contaminate the entire planet. Well, not if you're following BMPs. I bet my yard is having a lower impact on the environment than the natural area that's 30 feet away from it. That's all in the same watershed. I bet it is. That natural area is a different ecosystem, even though it's just not very far away. But there's this idea that because you're applying products to maintain it, there must be some sort of environmental impact that is above background levels. That's only true in cases where you don't know what you're doing. You're applying nutrients or pesticides against best management practices or something like that. Let's go to the next question, and then I'll read some comments in the chat. Ari says, I've heard some people being very positive about kieserite in regards to magnesium. So if I understand correctly, it's the sulfate in there that likely gives the greening response. Now, I think this was on one of the videos I did about these minerals. I can't remember now what it was, but Kieserite is a magnesium sulfate containing mineral. And oftentimes you'll be included in some ornamental fertilizers as a slow release magnesium source, which can be very useful for ornamental plants that are magnesium deficient. Okay, but in turfgrass, we don't normally see that. So my response was, I can't say for sure whether it's the magnesium or the sulfate. Kieserite has been documented to induce a response in some palm trees, but I don't think those studies were separated the effect of magnesium from sulfate. So a plant response from magnesium and kieserite is possible, but in turf, this has not been documented. In many turf soil systems, magnesium is commonly high enough naturally, whereas sulfate is commonly low. Occam's razor would say the response is most likely a result of the sulfate, but I can't say what would happen in all turf soil turf combinations. Thanks for the question. In other words, I can't say it wouldn't happen. I can just say that it's unlikely that it's from magnesium. It's probably more likely that it's from sulfate. And the reason for that is because we have documentation of sulfate deficient turfgrass occurring very commonly, whereas we don't have many documentations of magnesium deficient turfgrasses occurring. And so because of that, it's more likely that it's a response from the sulfate. Now, why is that important to you? Well, if magnesium sulfate is the least expensive source of sulfate, then it wouldn't matter to you. Just apply it. But magnesium sulfate is not the least expensive source of sulfate. It's usually gypsum or ammonium sulfate if you counterbalance the nitrogen from the ammonium sulfate. So if you're looking to resolve your issue for the least amount of money, then you'd need to find the least expensive sulfate source. So kieserite is not that. So, it's possible, but it's unlikely that it'd be coming from magnesium. It's more likely to be coming from sulfate. Next question. Research is not finished until you publish it. I don't know if that was a short or if that was I don't know what that was. Some video I did. And Wayne Esser says, I love the roadblocks to progress academics put up to justify their unique ways. I wonder if you'd say that about the medical doctor treating your loved one for cancer. You go in, doctor, my child is not feeling well and I'm looking for a solution. We don't have any solutions, but we found something over here that somebody said something that might work. We've never published it, but it might work. It might not work. Oh, well, let's try that. Roadblocks to progress. If that's what you want to call publications and research and science and evidence, then okay, call it that. But we don't build management practices on hypothesis and guesses and estimations, and we don't do that. Not in science. Certainly not in medical science. They have to go through accreditation, and if they don't follow the evidence, they'll lose their license. And the evidence comes not from the doctors that you see, but from scientists. Scientists, usually at universities, that are doing the research, and they sit on the accreditation committees, and they develop the credentials necessary for these doctors to follow, and all of it requires publication. The USDA doesn't want to hear a word from these associations in the world of agriculture unless it's published. That goes for golf, goes for ag, whatever it is. You go to Washington, D.C. and you sit down with these people. If it's not, they don't want to talk to you unless it's published. It's all hearsay. Publish it and then we'll talk. So that's why we publish it. So if you want to call that a roadblock, call it a roadblock, but I call it necessary production of evidence. Let's go to the chat. There's some chat in here before I go to the next comment. Welcome all, Western Mass, Chuck, Rob, my Transition Zone, Joe, OSU Turfman, Ryan, Elevated Landscapes. Ryan says, just wanted to say thank you for sharing your knowledge and time on here every week. Oh yeah, no problem. Well, thanks for showing up every week. Whenever you guys can make it, I'm always surprised that anybody shows up live, honestly. So I'm always flattered that anybody's here. The first 2 or 3 episodes, if you remember, no one was here. I can't remember who the first person was. I was sitting here one day and I was giving a talk and there was no one here. And all of a sudden I saw something pop up and I thought, I want to say it was like Aldo or Lush or I can't remember. And I was like, holy cow, someone's actually watching this. And now we have, usually 20 or 30 people on here and I'm always amazed. So thank you guys for showing up. I mean, it does really mean a lot to me for sure. It keeps me motivated, Elevated Landscape says, good evening, everyone. This channel has been a great addition to lawn care YouTube space. Keep up the great work, Dr. Shaddox. Thank you, Elevated Landscapes. I appreciate it. Yeah. So Ryan says he's not always able to join, got a job. And yeah, I get it. I mean, hey, that's the reason we record it. The only thing you can't watch on YouTube or the members only streams, you can, unless you're a member. Oh, of course, you're a member, Ryan, so you can watch it. But if you're not a member, we actually do a show every Monday morning that you can't see on YouTube if you're not a member. You can probably listen to it. Actually, you can listen to it on a podcast, but you can't watch it live unless you're a member. You can't watch it, period, unless you're a member. At one point, I was thinking about switching it over after some time, but honestly, I'm too lazy. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go in there and switch those videos back to public. Members are here. They're paying for it. They deserve it. And it's $5 a month. If you want to watch them, you can go. I think there's 25 or 30 videos that are just like these that you can't see unless you're a member. And it's not that much money. So good evening, Ashanti. Welcome to the members only, or the members of the members channel, whatever you want to call it. Welcome to the channel. Okay, guys, we're going to keep going. Next comment. Unlock your nutrients. It's funny going back through here because I'm asked these comments over time, and then I don't look at them again for like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't really remember them, so it's kind of like fresh going back through it. I don't remember what these things are, at least a lot of them. Unlock your nutrients. Wrong 648 says, "What do you think of the test done by Soil Lab?" Oh, yeah, we've gone over that a lot. And I said, I've discussed these tests in depth in a number of videos. You may want to check out the soil test playlist. Yeah, so you can watch these videos on the playlist on on my soil test playlist. I have a lot of stuff on these different fraudulent soil test processes. And I say, in short, I don't know of any good reason to use ion exchange soil tests. Thanks for watching. Yeah, so any of these ion exchange tests, as I mentioned before, I'll mention again, they may be the most useful at some point in the future. But right now, they're useless to me. There's no point in using them. You're just wasting money. And their recommendations back are nowhere in the universe of efficient in terms of the nutrients you actually need to produce an acceptable turf grass. Now, that's one thing I'm going to go over with the members only on the January, the pro members meeting in January. I'm going to go over some of those data and show you exactly the magnitude of waste. Because one of the studies I'm conducting is exactly that, the cost of these different soil test philosophies. And until there's a good reason, there's no reason to follow it. And there's no good reason right now to follow any of these ion exchange resin tests. You can still achieve the same thing in terms of home care or not leaving your house, getting something mailed to your home, but do it in a valid way. It's the soil kit and the RX soil, if I remember correctly. They will mail you a kit to your house. And it's not the little ion exchange bead. You take a sample, you put it in a soil sample bag and mail it to an accredited lab. Those are valid. And I want to say they're give or take roughly the same price. So there's really no good reason to even follow these because the convenience of never leaving your house has been met by other companies that do valid tests. Okay. Back to the questions. Why does dog urine kill lawns? That video. John Fetter says, step 1. Buy canine corrector in the hose-in sprayer. Step 2, pour the canine corrector down the sink. Step 3, use the remaining hose-in sprayer to water down the grass every time Fido pees. Problem solved. That's good, John. There's some movie that had that in it too. I can't remember now what it was. Anytime you send me a comment that makes me giggle, I'm going to put it on this thing, guaranteed. Unless you tell me not to, I'm going to put it on, guaranteed. Buy it. Dump it out in the sink, and then use the water to spray down the urine. That's what we did. That's what we found on the urine video. We have all these people, these hucksters and con men selling all these products to cure your dog urine problem. And meanwhile, the problem was actually lactic acid, and all you got to do is water it off. That's it. Next question. Some researchers just make up numbers. I don't remember. I don't remember that. Apparently that's a video I did. I can't remember. But apparently I did a video called Some Researchers Just Make Up Numbers. And Single Stack says, you are the one who makes up studies to suit your narrative and agenda. That's the other thing. If you write a negative comment, especially a really hateful, I'm definitely going to put it on here. I love them. I don't know why. It's just great. So why... What videos did I make up I've done 120 videos this year. Let's say probably 30 or 40 of those are just like commentary videos or something. I don't know. Let's just say I've done 80 on science papers. I made up those 80 studies and I did them just to suit my narrative and agenda. It's okay. That's great. I love that. Next one. Stop wasting money on unnecessary phosphorus. Wilson Online says, what is the risk of applying phosphorus? That's a very good question. And I want to answer that question in a couple different ways. I'm going to answer it, to me, the least important first. The risk of applying phosphorus is primarily a concern to me whenever you don't need to apply it. If you need to apply phosphorus, then by all means apply it according to best management practices, right? For your state and your location. I don't know all the local ordinances and state ordinances and laws. I'm not going to tell you how much to apply because I don't know what the laws are where you are at. But if you need to apply phosphorus, let's say your omega-3 phosphorus is less than 10 to 20, it's down there kind of low, and you're starting to see some purple colors, and you need to apply some phosphorus, then by all means, apply it. I'm not saying don't. But the problem is when people continue to apply it when you don't need to apply it. Like Joel Simmons, he had 90 pounds per acre on this morning's video, and he was saying, well, it'd really be better if it was 150 pounds per acre. Just these absolute bananas recommendations. And the reason that's concerning to me is because phosphorus is an element of potential environmental impairment. The overapplication of phosphorus in any ecosystem, if it's moved off-site, can have deleterious effects in our ecosystems. There are some microorganisms that are limited by the absence of phosphorus. And when you supply it and it washes off or runs off, whatever the case is, those microorganisms, their population can explode. And that can really wreak havoc in some of the ecosystems. Okay. So that's the agronomic risk. Okay. You're wasting money by applying it when you don't need to, and you're unnecessarily increasing the risk of environmental impairment. However, in my mind, that's the least important reason. Okay. To me, the most important reason, what's the most important risk of applying phosphorus is when you're applying it when you don't need to, you're not using critical thinking skills. This whole channel, in my opinion, has almost nothing to do with turf and soils in my mind. It's everything to do with critical thinking skills. I just use turf and soils as my conduit to communicate that objective of critical thinking skills. Is epistemology, asking the epistemological questions, developing those critical thinking skills, because those skills aren't just limited to soils and turf. They can be used in all aspects of your life. And I'm convinced that people, when we develop these critical thinking skills further, our societies and our communities will prosper more greatly or greatly. Okay. So the risk to me is when you're applying it when you don't need to. There's a failure to use critical thinking skills. Oh, well, I'm seeding, so I got to apply phosphorus. Oh, I have establishment, so I got to apply phosphorus. Oh, it's the new season, I got to apply phosphorus. Oh, it's a 3-3-3, I got to apply some phosphorus. Or the Malik-3 is 50 parts, 90 parts per million this morning, I got to apply some phosphorus. It's that concerns me. I'm not saying you shouldn't apply phosphorus. If you need to apply it, then apply it, but just do so after you've used some critical thinking skills and been convinced by good reasons. I know that's a long-winded sort of a completely seem like it's off topic, but it's really not. That's my concern with any of these practices. As long as we're using critical thinking skills and we continue to refine those, then I'm okay with the decision that's made. But it's just doing so out of tradition, out of habit, because we've always done it. These sorts of things are not good reasons. Okay. Next question: do repeated plant growth regulator applications harm Kentucky bluegrass? By Ninos. I planned, that was the video. And so Nino says, I plan to use a combo of Primo and a new next season. I'm in Chicago and I have Kentucky bluegrass. I'm interested to learn what you think about that. Now, you all know, if you've been here for any length of time, you all know I'm not a PGR specialist. I'm not a plant physiologist specialist. So I am way out of my comfort zone. But we did go over PGRs for about a month. And we did go over a couple of papers that included Primo and a new. And it seemed to me from those papers that both of these products will work. It seemed to me that applied correctly under labeled rates, they seem like they both will be fine. It seem to me that Primo might be a little bit more consistent, and we might be able to, we might be able to better or more consistently predict what's going to happen with Primo than with a new. But I think if you apply either one of them within labeled rates, you should be fine. Now, if you're going to apply them both combined, I didn't go over anything like that, and I don't know what would happen. I'm not sure, but I would have an extremely high level of confidence that if applied at the right rates, at the correct rates of either one of these two PGRs, that it will regulate the above ground growth of Kentucky bluegrass in Chicago, assuming that you're doing it at the right time of year and so forth. Okay. Next question. Comments and emails. Okay, so now we're going to the comments and emails. Oh, this is from Nino as well. I'm thankful to Google algorithm for recommending your videos to my feed. I wasted a lot of money on useless products like hydrotane, liquid aerators, and molasses. I'm done. No more. I feel your pain, Ninos. I really do. I feel that way with like other products. Like if I'm trying to get a deck built or a driveway redone or trying to fix my car or whatever the case is. I don't know anything about any of that stuff. So I'm sort of at the mercy of the information I can gain off the internet. I don't know a specialist I can call up and say, hey, what tire should I put on my car? I don't know. So I feel very impotent in that regard as well. And it sounds to me like that's kind of how you feel in this world, but don't lose any sleep over it. It's, there's plenty of resources. In fact, that Ryan from the Grass Factors here tonight, they run a good channel over there too. They use a lot of evidence-based, they provide a lot of evidence-based information. And we're going to go over that a little later tonight we're going to go over the Grass Factor video and Dr. Wood's video. And so you'll see there's plenty of resources out there, but they tend to be diamonds in the rough. Okay. Well, Elevated Landscapes is on here. He does a good show. Where is he at? Yeah, he was on here. Yeah, he's here. He does a real cool show. It's just one of his shows. I think it's Elevated Landscape. If I remember correctly, there's just like a 2-hour hangout and just casual talk type of show that he does, and he does a pretty good show. There's a couple of producers or content producers in the chat tonight that do pretty good stuff. So we're here, but there's a huge steaming pile of nonsense out there, and it's kind of hard to find us sometimes. And the remainder of Nino's question is, I'm questioning everything now, even core aeration. I'm also interested in learning about microbial activities that can improve the soil. I used these two products, Holganics Bio 800 and Bio Spectrum from Miramichi Green. Now, what I want to do, if I can do this without screwing stuff up, is I want to show these products because, thanks, Western Master. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I keep everybody confused. And one of these guys on here, and I don't want to embarrass anybody or whatever. One of these guys on, I can't remember now. I can't remember who's who. I can't remember the names. It's been so many months or more than years. Is literally an American hero. I'm just being straight up. I mean, for a living, he disarmed explosives for the United States military. How can you get more heroic than that? I mean, that is like serious like hero stuff. So we have an extremely eclectic group. We have airline pilots in this group. We have millionaires in this group. We have people that work fast food in this group. We have white people, black people, men, women. We have all sorts of people on this channel, members and subscribers. And it just makes me happy to no end to see such an eclectic group of turfgrass enthusiasts wanting to learn more about epistemology. Okay, sorry. Now, I want to see if I can get on this here, which I suspect I'm probably going to end up screwing this up. He said he uses Holganics. Nino said, so I wanted to show this Holganics website here. Yeah. Okay. Elevated. I wanted to Elevated in Western Math. I think they used to do a show or still do a show. So Holganics, I didn't know what this was. It's called Holganics Bio 800. And they have a video here. It's not very long. It's like 1 minute, but in short, I don't know what it is, but I want to play this video. It's real short, and I think it might be like bugs or something. I'm not sure, but let's see what the video says. So it says microorganisms. I'm gonna have to read it because there's no announcer. Holganics Bio 800 is a complete ecosystem in a jug. that harnesses the power over 800 species of beneficial microorganisms. Okay. Increases the plant tolerance of stresses from weather, traffic, diseases, and insects. So it sounds like it's just bugs in a jug. Root growth. Reduces inputs and including fertilizer. So these are all just claims. Reduces fertilizers, pests, and water, and a lot of other claims from bugs in a jug. So what makes Bio 800 unique is, I'll turn this down a little bit, is field and university tested. Oh, I love that. I love it when they say university tested. We all know what happens there. DNA fingerprinted for product consistency. Okay, so it just... Okay, so refrigerate to keep the life, probably says keep the life alive, dormant, and fresh for use. Okay, so it's just a bugs in a jug. It's interesting because it said 800. So the 800 must be 800. Did they say 800 species? 800 plus unique. 800 plus unique is, what did it say? Okay, 800 plus unique something or other. Whatever. Let me show you something for those people who may not know. It says 800 bugs in a jug. To give everybody an idea, one, I'm not a microbiologist. Okay, I have taken graduate level soil microbiology, but I know enough to be extremely dangerous. One of the more thorough books, and it's a pretty useful book in terms of, it's not very easy to understand, but I mean, it's for soil microbiology, it's one of the easier books to understand. It's called Principles and Applications of Soil Microbiology. And in this book, I'm going to hopefully not spend an hour trying to find it. There's a table in here somewhere. I know it's at the beginning. Okay, so in this book on page 7, I'm going to give you all an idea. When it says 800 species or 800 microorganisms, that is a joke. It's laughable. It's asinine to even see that. Because for the average person, they might go, 800 bugs, 800 microorganisms. Okay. Now, let me read this. Bacteria are the most abundant microorganisms in the soil, attaining populations in excess of 100 million per gram of soil, and represent perhaps as many as 10,000 to 1 million different species. Okay? And then it talks about actinomycetes and fungi, and it has all the different numbers per gram. The viruses and bacteria, actinomycetes can be anywhere from, that would be 10 million to 100 million in a gram. Okay? Fungi is anywhere from, they have on here, it looks like it'd be 10,000 to 10,000 to 100, no, wait, no, 10,000. No, 100,000 to 1 million fungi. I mean, you can see the table. I'm reading here from a table here. I don't know if you can see it or not. You can pause the video if you want to pause it and read the table. But the point being, 800 species is nothing. In 1 gram, there's hundreds of millions of microorganisms. Okay, it's crazy high. And talking normal native soils, agricultural soils. Okay, so. The comment was, what I think about this whole Organics Bio 800, I'm not sold on any bugs in a jug or bugs in a bag until there's evidence to support it. And I'm not aware of any evidence that any of these bugs in a jug, 1, are probably even living by the time you apply them. 2, could survive once they were applied in competition with the indigenous species. And then, even if they did survive, what is that going to do for me that I could not achieve with a less expensive source of nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium or whatever? Okay, so I'm not convinced at all. Now, the next product was this BioSpectrum from Miramichi. Now, I have done some work with Miramichi Green on some seed establishment years ago. I won't go into that now, but generally, I have worked with some of their products. This particular product called BioSpectrum, I've never heard of, never seen, don't know anything about it. But again, because I don't know anything about it, I pulled up the label. And the label, again, is just bugs in a bag. That's all it is. Bacillus, a bunch of different bacillus microorganisms. And they have the percentages here of these different microorganisms and whatnot. So whether it's this, whether it's air injection, whether it's carbon fertilizers, it doesn't matter. Whether it's nitrogen, whether it's potassium, whatever it is, the knee-jerk reaction or the immediate interest in going and trying to try these products is very expensive. You're probably going to waste a lot of money. Just being honest. It may work. You may be that guy who said, I jumped on it early and it works. May work. Most of the time you're going to be disappointed. I'll say that. Bugs in a bag and bugs in a jug. I'm not going to say they don't work. I'm just saying I'm not convinced that they do work because I'm not aware of anything that would even be remotely convincing to me to spend my money on these products. Now, let me go back to Word. Sorry, I got to move quickly tonight because I got so much stuff. The next question is from Super Nom, I guess. I guess that's what you say. I'd love to see your opinion on Daniel Hibbert's latest video, Drainage in a Bag, he is selling. I've never heard of Daniel Hibbert, but drainage in a bag is definitely interesting to me. I don't know what it is, but that struck my interest for sure. I'm like, I got to go see that. So we're going to I'm going to do my best to open up Drainage in a Bag. I'm going to assume that it's probably gypsum. I don't really know. Let's see what Daniel Hibbert has to say about drainage in a bag, I guess. So I'm pretty sure this is the video. And just give me a minute to kind of reposition some of this stuff. Let's see what he says. This is on Daniel Hibbert, the lawn expert, simple drainage fix in your lawn using nature.
Hello, welcome to another video. The snow is gone, the rain is gone, but it has left us with really wet lawns all over the country. Now, if you're struggling to get on your lawn, I'm going to show you something that you can use today to start improving the drainage in your lawn so you can get on after the weather like we've had over the weekend. But
okay, well, it's going to show us something. I'm just going to use my little mouse here to scroll over to where... Okay, here we go. Drainage. See what he says.
Okay, so we're on to the part now where I'm going to talk about how to improve drainage in your lawn without doing a right lot. So there's no digging trenches, no bringing gravel in, no putting a pipe in, having to lift your patio up to get a bit of an outlet. What all it is...
Well, I can tell you right now, I don't know what he's going to say. I can tell you right now, it's probably not going to convince me. I'm just being honest, because if you're having drainage problems and there's a solution in the bag, do you really think all these golf courses would be, cutting in drainage pipes and putting drain in their fairways to get all the water out of it? They'd just be applying this product. You know how expensive it is? You know how many irrigation lines you're going to cut with a ditch witch as you're trying to put in a drainage line? It's going to suck. It's a lot of money. But you got to put in those drainage pipes to get that water off those fairways where it settles in the low areas, or the turf is going to suffer. So if there was a solution to it, I would think that they would probably have found it by now in some of these golf courses that have the funding to support such, temps or, that would try some of this stuff out. So let's see what he says, though. Maybe I'm wrong.
Is drainage in a bag. So what I'm going to do is I've set up a little experiment behind you. So I'm going to show you how it works and the science behind it. Okay, so this is how drainage in a bag works. So before us we have two margarine tubs. I drilled straight through both, so there's exactly the same amount of holes in each tub. Filled one with mushy peas. This is emulating clay under the ground so water can't pass through, and this is what happens in science under a microscope when we apply drain.
That's cool. He has one tub with mushy peas and one tub with regular peas that haven't been mished up. If you've never been to England at any length of time, you probably don't know. You're probably unfamiliar with that. I don't know. But mushy peas are very common food in England. So he has one tub mashed up and one tub with like basically marble sized peas in it.
In a bag. So say heavy rain, we put on, your waters going nowhere. So what happens is we sprinkle our drainage in a bag on, and over time, through a process called flocculation, our positively charged ion in the calcium attracts like a magnet the negatively charged clay particle, and over time we end up with, under the microscope, this is just enlarged.
Well, that, to be frank, that isn't not a bad little display. I mean, he has mushy peas and he poured some water in and the water didn't drain out at all. And then he has the regular peas where there's a lot of macro pores and the water's draining straight through. Drainage in soils occurs primarily in the macro pores, and the after free drainage has occurred as a result of gravity, what water's remaining is in the micro pores. And when you have dispersion in your soils, all those little clay particles move downward into those macro pores, basically clogging it up if you have a sodic soil. But if you don't have a sodic soil, you don't have sodium, dispersion is probably not going to occur. If you have sands, then it doesn't matter how much sodium you have. There's no dispersion. There's no clay there to disperse, and you would still have the macro pores. But I like the display. Your question was, what do I think? What I think is, I think I'm going to steal this idea and use it as an example to show that water will move through primarily these larger particles because the macro porosity is so much larger than the other areas where the mushy peas have clogged up the drainage. So I like the example he's using. I don't know what he's talking about in terms of flocculation, but we'll get to it.
We end up with percolation because we have bigger particles of clay. So when it rains and we go and put the water on again,
yeah, I like that idea. I like the little example.
It can just drain straight through. And not only that, when clay allows water to pass through, it starts to dry out. And this is how football pitches work in terms of their drainage. Once that ground starts to dry out underneath, they've got drains as well, but then the clay fractures and fissures and the water can pass through all the gaps that are created by that. So that is how drainage in a bag works. So let's get it on.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what is it? What's in the drainage in a bag? I don't understand. Let me see what he says here at the end after he mows his lawn. I don't know what's in the bag.
Video done and dusted. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and you've learned something about how drainage in a bag works at very least. So talking about that, all we've got to do now is let the rains come again and wash that through, along with the winter trio that I put.
Well, I don't know who sent this. Who sent this question? It was Supernom. I don't know what's in the bag. What I can say is it's very unlikely that anything in the bag or any bag, his bag or any other bag, is going to somehow cure, drainage problems. It's not likely to happen at all. If you have sodic soils, which there's virtually no one, well, that's wrong. I did have a council in Utah where they do have some sodic soils, but very few people have sodic soils. But if you're in the system, you're in a situation where you have sodic soils and you have those clays, then gypsum can be of use to you to alleviate some drainage issues. But if you don't have that, then applying anything, calcium sulfate or I don't know what's in the bag, so I can't say, but I'm assuming it's like a gypsum product. It's not really going to help much at all. Okay. So that's my take on that. I didn't know that video was sort of a flop. Sorry about that, guys. Let's go to the next question. Email, Dr. Shaddox, I want to thank you. The internet is full of BS. It's just refreshing when you finally come across people who are doing their best to elevate the truth. I appreciate that, and that's what I'm doing. I fail every day, but I'm doing my best to elevate the truth. What is my opinion on mowing leaves into the lawn? I've been through a lot of your videos, and I may have missed any opinions you have on the matter. I have not talked about that. There is a study going on right now. I'm going to get this wrong. It's either, I always get Wisconsin and Minnesota confused, who's doing what where. But let me see if I can stick a picture in this thing real quick. Maybe I'll do this real quick and show you my interest or my concern. Let me see if I can put this in here. I don't know if I can do that or not without screwing the whole system up here. Oh, I can. So what's my opinion on leaves? My opinion on leaves is it kind of depends on how bad they are and how good you want your lawn to look. Okay, I got it. Okay, well, son of a gun. Look at that. Now, if I can get this back without screwing everything else up. Oh, I might have got it. I may have got it. So let's see here. All right. I did. Look at that. So proud of myself. So what's my opinion on leaves? Well, this is my backyard before I cut down the remaining. There's these 3 trees. Let's see. You can't see my mouse. These 1, 2, 3 trees on the right side of this picture. This is black cherry. Here's what fell on my house, and then the other black cherry. I had that removed, and then that hackberry down there, I've removed that, and there's a big elm, and I'm standing underneath a massive catalpa tree. You can actually see the catalpa leaves laying on the lawn right here in the middle of this lawn. And on the left side, I've mowed it and picked up the clippings. This was, I guess, last year. No, it was 2 years ago, I guess. And so on the left side, I've removed the leaves, and on the right side, I have yet to have mowed up the leaves in my own yard. Now, the shade you're looking at here, that's gone now, because the shade behind me is south. So that tree's gone. So all that shade now and all these trees here are gone, and all this is sun. But before then, I had all these leaves on the lawn. And when you're dealing with catalpa trees, when you have these leaves the size of dinner plates, that's a very different situation than if you have like a live oak, okay, it barely even drops the leaves, and when they do, they're this big, they're tiny little things. So, in my opinion, it depends on the seriousness of the shade. In this particular lawn, there's a lot of shade before I cut these trees. There's a lot of shade, okay, and those leaves fall at the worst time of year when the sun's already declining. So now you're going to have a lot of sun coming through the canopy of the trees, but now all the leaves are on the grass. So I would remove these leaves because I wanted to have that grass photosynthesize as much as it could before it went into wintertime. So I removed them, and you can see the difference on this video. I mean, you're talking probably 70% light blockage, 60 to 70% light reduction just because of the leaves that are on my lawn in this photograph. Here's the other photograph, the same lawn, my same lawn, and you can see the amount of leaves that I would deal with. We're talking in some places 3 or 4 inches thick. Okay. Now, if you leave the grass under those leaves, you know what's going to look like. It's going to be yellow. To me, that's a reduction of photosynthesis, a reduction in potential growth, a reduction in carbohydrate production that I don't want to have. So I would remove them. But I don't know what the study from Wisconsin or Minnesota, I don't know what that's going to say. They're doing some work with this right now, whether you should leave them or mulch them in and what depth is hazardous or helpful or whatever the case is. But in my opinion, in my lawn, I think it was best to remove them. Now, if you have a mulching mower with a few trees, then you can just mulch them in. It's no problem. But when you're dealing with this, you're dealing with, and the back here, now granted, I blew these leaves off of this row here on the mulch bed. I blew that back onto the grass. You're dealing with 6-7 inches of leaves. Try mulching that in. Okay? That's a problem. So I would remove it when it's that bad. But if you're dealing with just, a couple little leaves like this, mulch it up or bag it up. Either way, you're probably fine. It just depends on the magnitude and severity and the size and all these other things and your expectations. If you're expecting a really high quality lawn, I wouldn't be doing anything that would minimize the photosynthetic potential of the grass. I would do what I could to make sure that the grass is photosynthesizing at the highest rate possible throughout the year. And in this time of the year, it would involve removing the leaves. So that's my take on that. But I understand there's no data on it yet as far as I know, or if there is, there's very little. And there should be coming out, they've been doing that study up there for a few years, so I would think they would be publishing at least an abstract in the ASA if they haven't already. Okay. That's my take on that. Good question. Who asked that question? Oh, it was an email, so I left the name off. So whoever sent that email, thank you for sending that email. It's a good question. Okay, Dr. Shaddox, I really enjoy your videos. I reluctantly admit to being one of many golf course superintendents who put stock into base saturation ratios. Once I found your channel, I began to look back on my program and really went back to the foundations of my turfgrass roots. I even found in one of my old turfgrass textbooks that it only has one reference to base saturation. The last line of the paragraph says this: these ratios can lead to erroneous assumptions for turf, and recommendations based solely on these ratios should not be used to develop turf fertility programs. That's a good book. Whatever book he was reading is a good book. It's in the textbooks. From that point on, I retooled everything and saw an improvement in my turfgrass quality with reductions in applied nutrients. I wanted to say thank you for what you're doing. It is not until you look around and start asking your peers that you realize what an influence that methodology, base saturation, has on our industry as a whole. Your videos have ruined my ability to listen to sales reps pitch their products. Yes. I mean, I was in sales for a long time. I still have a lot of friends that are salesmen. They're good at what they're good at, but use them for that. Rates, labeled rates, you need products. You're not a fertilizer distributor. You have to buy some fertilizer. You have to buy some chemicals. But listening to them for education, you're rolling the dice on that one. They're selling you something. You know that, and they know that. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. When they walk in the door, you both know exactly why he's there. And if you need something from them, then by all means, that's what they're there for. Otherwise, let the teachers teach and let the salesmen sell. My question for you is in reference to foliar applications such as iron, magnesium, and manganese being used for a color response on golf course putting greens. I'm located in Florida, just north of blank. I left it out. I don't want this particular gentleman to, confidential. I want to dial in my foliar program to reduce waste and maximize efficiency. From most of the information I see, we dramatically overuse iron in the turf world. Is there a simpler way to determine application rates other than constantly doing spot treatments at different rates to see when it stops being effective? To be clear, I am only applying these for color response and not to correct any deficiencies. My soil test shows I am at adequate levels of nutrients according to both Florida BMPs and MLSN. My greens are 25 to 30-year-old USGA spec greens. I currently use a growth potential model for yearly usage rates divided into equal parts of magnesium. I use magnesium sulfate. This equals roughly 14 pounds of magnesium per acre over a year. This number comes from the estimated usage in my area due to climate and rainfall via the growth potential model. For iron, I use a recommended label rate from the product called Iron Plus from Harrell's. Ferrous sulfate and manganese sulfate. I use the recommended rate because the yearly usage rate for iron and manganese is extremely low. I wish to have a better understanding of how to determine foliar application rates as they do not seem to coincide directly with soil nutrient levels. For example, I have adequate levels of iron in my soil, but with foliar applications, I still see a color response. And the reason I put that on there is that I get that quite a bit. I see that my soil levels in my on soil tests, my soil values of, say, iron, manganese, whatever it is, are adequate. But when I spray these out, I see a response. So what gives, right? The issue is, I actually talked about this maybe on the members only stream. I can't remember. The issue is with iron. Let's talk about iron just by itself for a second. The issue with iron is there is no reliable soil test value for iron with turf grasses. So forget it. What you look at on a soil test, Malic 3, I don't care what you come up with, any soil extractant you can come up with. Whatever value that is on iron is 99.99% useless to you as a practitioner. It's of no use. Just forget it. The iron that in that soil that they tested may be completely different than the iron that was when you pulled out of the ground because it oxidizes within about 10 to 15 minutes. It'll change. It'll become insoluble to a form that would not be extracted by that Malic 3 extract. Okay, so there's a lot of conversions that happen with iron, but more importantly, there is no correlation between what should be in the soil, what is in the soil, with what a turfgrass response would be. There's no correlation there, so forget it. Just disregard iron completely on a soil test. Just don't worry about it. Okay, you may end up being iron deficient, particularly in the spring. I have spring and summer induced iron deficiencies, depending on how the seasons go. But you're not going to be able to predict that from a soil test. So and you're not going to be able to cure that from granular iron at all, really. So the only solution is to apply a foliar application of iron as you need the color. Okay. 99.9% of the time, you're going to see a response from foliar application of iron. I've never seen it not work, but it's possible that it couldn't work. Okay. But foliar applications of iron, but don't use a soil test to predict your iron usage. With manganese, it's more or less the same, but we do have a little bit more confidence with manganese. Manganese is going to be soluble in the soil solution to some degree following a granular application. In other words, you can cure manganese deficiencies with either a foliar or a granular. It will oxidize, but nowhere near like iron does. The manganese levels on soil tests aren't very I'm not very confident with them at all. But if you're, 20, 30 parts per million manganese on a Mehlich 3 soil test or greater, you're probably fine. But I've grown a heck of a lot of turf at like 10 parts per million manganese, and it's fine. Okay, so short and skinny of it is, the reason you're seeing a response to foliar applications whenever the soil test says you're adequate is because the soil test is wrong. You can't use iron on the soil test, and you're almost always going to see a response to foliar applied iron, because it's either going to result in a greening response or it's just going to stain the leaf darker, because the iron will stain everything it touches. Foliar iron sulfate will stain your cart paths, your cart itself, the tires, your boots, your jeans. It'll stain everything. So that stain, when it occurs on a leaf blade, may give the appearance of a darker green color when in fact it's just a darker color. It's a darker, brown color. It just looks darker. Either that or it's actually being metabolized and turning green, or a combination of both. Okay. I never was able to actually partition that out. I had an instrument here at UK, but I was never actually here long enough to get a project going to separate that out. Okay. Next question. I got to get going here. Hello, Dr. Shaddox. I want to personally thank you for efforts and contributions that you made to Turfgrass Epistemology. Your effort in detecting bullshit in our ever bullshitting society, and specifically to our beloved green industry. It is quite refreshing and rewarding. Again, thank you. Thank you. As I mentioned to you previously, I need to have a conversation with you as to the past experiences in the 40 plus years trying to unlock the codes of healthy grass and soils, as well as using less pesticides, only to be led back by shortcomings to a full circle of basic agronomy and judicial use of pesticides. My particular question today is in reference to one of your latest topics, and that is dog urine in lawns. I too thought it was nitrogen or the salt, and I too thought I could make a magic potion using humic acids and other foo-foo products. In fact, I was going to call it Grateful Dog, not Grateful Dead. That's a good line. I like that, Grateful Dog. Have like a little skull, and red and white and blue skull on top. That'd be good. My question is on the opposite side of the spectrum of the topic. I have observed in warm season grasses in late winter, in the transition period from dormancy to green up, the grass being quite green and lush where our beloved dog has peed. My deductive reasoning makes me believe, then why don't I tinkle my lawns with a low rate of urea ammonium nitrate to stimulate what I'm experiencing and seeing, and try to get a head start on the green up process, producing a greener lawn and a happier client? Your thoughts. So what the short and skinny of it is, he's seeing these, where the dog urinates, he's seeing these spots be greener throughout the winter and green up earlier in the spring. And the question is, well, why don't I just apply some UAN or some more nitrogen or whatever the case is to get that response, on my own, intentionally do it? And what I'll say is, I don't really have an answer for that. And the reason I don't have an answer for that is because I don't know exactly what's going on there. There's a couple things I can tell you for sure that are confounding factors. One is the urea in that in the urine is very likely there's nitrogen in that urea and that urine, and it's causing that response. But why is it hanging out so long? Because you're also applying it with liquid, with water. There's water in that urine. And what I wanted to show you is, you're like, well, you might think, well, water it's not going to have that big of an impact on keeping turf from going dormant. Well, hold on. This picture I actually posted a long time ago in the community tab on the YouTube channel. This is a picture of Bermuda grass here in Lexington in the middle of the winter. And for those listening, there's a big green swath of Bermuda grass here surrounded by dormant Bermuda grass. This is right outside of the ag building here in Lexington, Kentucky, on the University of Kentucky campus. And I was walking by here. This is how I'd walk to work every day. And I'd walk by here, and I'm like, how in the heck is that grass green in the middle of January when all this other grass is dormant? I was like, something's got to be going on here. I mean, you can see it on the picture. I mean, it's not even close. And I could not figure that out. I was like, man, what is the deal? I mean, that's something else going on here, And occasionally when I'd be walking into work, this probably happened maybe 3 times in the 3 years I was here, 3 or 4 times in 3 years I was here. I'd be walking into the building at a certain time of day, and there would be workers outside. And you see a truck here, but this was just coincidental. This wasn't the truck, but there'd be a truck here, and they would be working on the fire safety system in the building. And what they would do once a month is, when I saw them there, I asked them, what's going on? They had water draining out of this red pipe, this red cast iron drain pipe here. And it was this is like a 6-inch pipe, or maybe a 4-inch pipe. It's a huge pipe. And it was just gushing out of this thing for like 30, 40 minutes, long time. And I stopped there one day and I was like, what is going on here? And they go, well, once a month we have to drain the fire safety, the sprinkler system in the building to make sure it's working. And when we go to the next building, and I go, you do that once a month? And he goes, yeah. I go, well, how long does this take? It takes an hour. Thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons come out and drain right into this drain. You can see the drain in the photograph. So every month they're flooding this entire turf grass with massive quantities of water. All through the winter too. Every month they do this. Reason I'm saying that in relation to this dog urine thing is this is an example of this turf grass staying actively growing even when it should be dormant simply because it has water on it. Okay? There's no other reason. There's nothing in that water they're draining out of the fire system, the sprinkler system in this building other than just straight water. And you can see as plain as day, it's just because there's water there. They're putting on so much water, it's either insulating the soil from temperature or it's just giving the water, the turf what it needs when it needs it in terms of the water uptake, whatever it is. So when it comes to urine and dog spots, there's a nitrogen component and there's a liquid water component in the urine. I don't know. So I don't know how to answer that gentleman's question is where I'm going with that. It could be that the urine is applying so much water so much nitrogen that it's just pushing the turf grass to grow when it shouldn't be. It should be slowing down. Or it could be that there's liquid in there, water that's giving it a little bit of extra liquid when it needs to, or a combination of both. I don't know. But those are my thoughts. I wouldn't be going out and applying 10 pounds of nitrogen to keep the grass growing all winter, because that's probably what's in that urine on that little bitty spot, So anyway, that's my thoughts. There's a water and a nitrogen thing going on there. Let's keep going because I got a lot to get to. I got several more pages here. Hi, sir. I was recently unfortunate to meet with a few hucksters at a conference. Oh, one of whom you have critiqued on your channel. Oh, really? That's nice. And uses his YouTube channel to push products. Another was a mostly surfactant manufacturer. The first thing the salesperson mentioned in their pitch was sodium in the spray water. Oh, okay. Spray water meaning used as the carrier for LCOs applying pesticides and fertilizers. To my knowledge, learning from you and other sources, sodium problems related to turf are fairly rare, but can occur in certain geographic areas and potentially from irrigation water that contains high levels of sodium. It never occurred to me this could become a problem from a spray tank application. Yeah, it could be. I mean, it's possible. Not really unlikely, but I don't know your irrigation system. I don't know where you're getting your water from. I figure most LCOs are going out somewhere between 0.5 and 3 grams of this would be like 1/10 to 3/4 of a pound of nitrogen 4 to 8 times per year. I presume anything is possible, but if there were extremely high sodium levels in the water of those applications, what's the chances this becomes a soil problem? Well, that's a good question. They finished with, get your water tested and be sure to send us the report so we can walk you through it. I predict no matter what comes back on that analysis, they would have the product for it. Thanks for the content and happy holidays. Well, okay. I understand what you're saying. I understand your skepticism. However, I too would agree with them. I would get your water tested and do a suitability for irrigation analysis. A lot of labs do it. It sounds like you might not be in the United States. You might be in Canada or Europe somewhere if you're using metric units. But do a suitability for irrigation test, or just send your water sample off to a lab that will do that for you, and see whether or not you do have a concern there or not. I don't know. I have no clue. If you're using effluent water, it's very possible that your sodium levels could be elevated to a point that you might need to know how to alleviate that. I would probably be more concerned about sodium ion toxicity directly if you're spraying it on the leaves through your solution. But in terms of a soil problem, there's a lot going on there, guys and gals. You have to have the right clays. You have to have 2-to-1 clays. You can't have like kaolinite. That's not going to do anything. It's not going to be a problem. You have to have like smectites or montmorillonites. You have to have those types of clays, and you have to have a high enough level of those types of clays that when they're dispersed, they would cause a problem in a sodic soil situation. And then you have to have the right amount of, or the high enough levels of sodium to disperse those clays. There's a lot going on. So what's my thoughts on that? I don't know what would happen because I don't know how much sodium you're applying through the system. I have no clue. It seems pretty far-fetched that would be a problem. I mean, how many times you're spraying it? 4 or 5 times, 6 times a year, and you're applying maybe 2 gallons an acre. I'm sorry, 2 gallons per 1,000, maybe. So 80 gallons an acre. It's unlikely that rate would ever cause a problem. But again, I don't know. I don't know the sodium levels in your solution. I don't know. I'd have to know that. But that seems pretty far-fetched to me. Okay, but I agree with him. I would get a suitability for irrigation test if that is of interest or concern to you, that there might be something going on that would identify it. Next question. Just wanted to see what your thoughts were on this product. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. I don't know what this is. I didn't have this pulled up. It's a Gulf Ventures product. Every time I click something, I'm always afraid this whole system's going to fall apart. Okay, I got it up. Okay, let's go to this and this. Let's see, make sure I can do this without. Okay. Gulf Ventures. What are my thoughts on this product? Agri-Rouse. Never heard of it. So what is it? It's a plant growth regulator for use on soil applications on sport turf and ornamentals. Okay. Oh, well, Agri-Rouse is a blend of biostimulant. Oh, let me look at the label. Oh, it says a blend of cytokinins, gibberellic acid, and indole butyric acid. Let's look at the label. Oh, cytokinins. Yeah, cytokinins, gibberellic acid. Okay, so it's just cytokinins and gibberellic acid and da-da-da. Well, I'm not a PGR person. I don't know what the gibberellic acid at that rate would do. And I'm not a plant physiologist. What I would say is the limited information I have would indicate that if you have a problem, the likelihood of this solving it is probably pretty low. I don't know if this would regulate the plant growth at that rate or not. Well, who sent that? I don't know who sent that question in. It wasn't listed, but I'm not a PGR specialist, so I don't know. I would ask you to think about it critically. What problem are you trying to solve? And is there any evidence to support it with this product? If you're just trying to limit the plant growth, if you're in a location, this is in New Jersey, so I'm assuming you're in the United States. I'm assuming if that's the case, then if you just use, like a product like T-Nex or something, Trinexpac or something, or not T-Nex, but Trinexpac Ethyl, or use Anu, like a lot of other people do. I don't know if there's something specific about this product that you're interested in, but I don't know. The answer to your question is I don't know anything about this product, and I'm not a PGR specialist, but if I were interested in regulating the plant growth, I would stay with a tested and true product that is known to be, consistent in practice. And I'm not familiar with this particular one. Let me go back. I'm getting all sort of screwed up here. Okay, now. Hello, Mr. Travis. First of all, thank you for enlightening me on the BS artists that have got too much money from me. They have got too much money from me over the years. I have a few questions for the next Q&A show. Who is worse for the environment? Farmers, golf courses, or DIY homeowners that now use your BMPs adhere to Maryland's fertilizer blackout schedule? Last year, I applied 4 pounds of nitrogen for the year. The blackout schedule goes from November 15th to March 15th. Thanks for your help. Man, that is not an easy question to answer. Who's worse for the environment? Farmers, golf courses, or DIY homeowners? And assuming the DIY homeowners use your BMPs. Well, they're not my BMPs, but I know what you're saying. Anybody want to put it in the chat what your opinion is on this question? There's a lot of different ways to look at that. I would say that if you're going to measure environmental impact by the magnitude of their impact, I don't think there's any question that it's got to be farmers, because they have such a massive footprint. In other words, maybe, maybe percentage-wise it's low, but they have such a massive amount of area that they treat that I would think it'd be farmers. Now, if you want to talk about per capita, or per person, without question, it's homeowners. There's no contest. That would be my opinion. No contest. The golf courses and homeowners are going to use more of the control release materials, a little bit more safer products than farmers would use. They're going to use anhydrous ammonia and DAP and things like that. So they're safer with homeowners, but I don't know many homeowners that are that sharp with the calculator and the spread rates and things like that. Okay. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I would say farmers would probably have the larger impact just because there's such a massive footprint in the United States and around the world compared to the other two categories. But per person or per unit, I would think that it would be a slam dunk. Homeowners would probably be causing more per unit. It's just their footprint's so much smaller than a farmer. I don't know. I don't know what y'all's thoughts on it are. I don't know if anybody has any answer to that question. Let's keep going. I got a little bit more to go to. Good morning and happy holidays. I know you have appeared on the Grass Factor and Dr. Woods has appeared on your channel, so you may have watched this episode. I love the content that you and Dr. Woods often present, and the Grass Factor guys are stand-up guys themselves. You are referenced in the show regarding MLSN. It would be awesome if Dr. Woods could be a guest on your show to discuss this specific topic, or perhaps you go over this show at some point on your Tuesday show. Oftentimes your shows are misperceived, misunderstood, or misrepresented as bashing or poking fun of the content creator, when in fact you are simply correcting false claims and or misleading information. I love the video shows and learn so much from them, so I hope you keep them going. I think going over this video may be refreshing to have on your channel so you can highlight factual information presented and why, while also sharing your position on MLSN and why, when that is discussed on this video. This is a suggestion for your consideration. Happy holidays. Once again, you and Dr. Woods, sold out Irving, Bigelow, Rich, and so many others are the goats. Okay, so let's look at this video. I didn't watch this video until after I got this email. I did get this email, and I got a couple of texts and another couple of emails that were concerning enough for me to feel like I need to go over this and explain it to people so that there's no confusion. Okay. Let me get this up. Okay. All right. So the Grass Factor guys, who's Ryan's on here tonight, or he was earlier, had Dr. Woods on. I've had Dr. Woods on my show, and they were talking about, I don't know if I listened to the whole thing. It's 2 hours long, but they mentioned, or this email mentioned, they talked about you, and a couple other ones were like, hey, they mentioned this or whatever. And, the emails were like, is there a problem between you and Dr. Woods or between you and the Grass Factor guys? And let me just say, no, there's not. But I went back and watched the video, and well, let's just show the clip and let Dr. Woods say what he's going to say, and then I'll comment on it. Hopefully I can get this to work. So on the screen is Dr. Michael Woods, as you all may know. He was on the Grass Factor a week or two ago, and they were talking about MLSN, the minimum level of sustainable nutrients, and they mentioned me a few times, and we're going to go to those points in the video.
And that's how it works for every element. And it turns out that this is a really efficient way to do it. And the criticism that I get from people like TravisShaddox or from Doug Soldat or other university professors, the criticism that I get from them is that MLSN recommends too much. And then the criticism I get, I think, from Ray is that MLSN doesn't recommend enough. So I feel like it's really an interesting place to be criticized on all sides. But
okay, so he's right. I mean, I do criticize. I don't criticize Dr. Woods. I criticize MLSN because oftentimes it does recommend too much. Oftentimes it recommends not enough. There are examples where the phosphorus limit or the turfgrass response to phosphorus occurs at levels greater than 20 parts per million or 21 parts per million, or whatever's on the MLSN. That's true. So I don't see any conflict. I mean, what he's saying is accurate. I mean, in the world of science, we go to science meetings and we publish papers, and we are heavily heavily criticized. Okay, we want to make sure the information that comes out is correct, or at least as correct as it can be. So I want my papers hammered by my co-authors, just absolutely just massacred by my co-authors, because I know when it gets sent in, the editors and the reviewers are going to do the same, and I want them to do the same. I want the reviewers to just tear it apart, because I want to make sure the information is as accurate as it can be. Okay, a good, strong review, not disrespectful review. There's reviewers that are complete jerks. They're very rare, but they do happen. I'm not interested in being jerks and just being disrespectful. I'm interested in a true, sincere criticism of my work. And Dr. Woods is saying the same thing. You know, Dr. Soldat and Dr. Shaddox criticize this. Yes, we criticize it. You know, there's many things that I've said that Dr. Woods, I'm sure, criticizes too. That's just how it is in science. But I don't see anything wrong with that at all. He's absolutely correct. So let me go to the next part. It's at 1 hour and 57 minutes, and then I'll have a little bit more to say about MLSN and myself and Dr. Woods. Whoops, let's go here.
Fact of it and promoting it. Even MLSN, it's such an unconventional way to do things. I told Larry that I was kind of embarrassed to put my name to it at the start, because I'm like, the real scientists are just going to laugh at us. And you see people like TravisShaddox, he still won't accept it because it's never been published. I no longer have that modesty or potential embarrassment about it. I'm just like,
okay, he's right. I mean, there's zero conflict. There's no problem at all. I don't accept it because it's never been published. Dr. Woods said it himself. This is not as if Dr. Woods and I, this is the first time he and I have spoke about this. We've spoken about this several times. It's never been published. The methodology has never been published, so I don't accept it as being true. It's just the same threshold holds true for anything. There's no reason for me to believe it until there's good evidence to support the position. And until you publish it, I don't have any good reason to believe it. Now, let me back up just a minute to make sure that we're all on the same page. I am convinced that people like myself, people like Dr. Woods, people like the guys at the Grass Factor, we need everyone in every different methodology and approach on the same direction. And that is, yes, Dr. Woods and I have disagreements on scientific philosophies, and he has differences of opinion with what I say and so forth. But we are so outnumbered. My opinion is this: we are so outnumbered and so far behind when it comes to where the industry needs to be in terms of nutrient use efficiency, proper use of nutrients, proper rates, timings, and all these things. We are behind the 8 ball because the industry is flooded with hucksters and flooded with con artists and quacks and just all sorts of people who are trying to sell stuff on base count saturation, who are trying to sell more fertilizer than the turfgrass can actually use. Okay, we're flooded by that. We are losing the battle. And we need everybody who has the positions that I hold, and I believe the positions that Dr. Wood holds. I think he and I are on the same page. He wants the industry to be more efficient with the nutrient usage, as do I. I want people to follow the evidence to result in more efficient usage of nutrients. Stop wasting phosphorus, start wasting your money, stop wasting all this time and effort throwing fertilizer out there that the turf couldn't ever possibly take up. So I think he and I are on the same page. He just has fundamentally a different approach to it. And I have no problem with his approach. In this case, the end justifies the means. The MLSN values are not that far off from published values in the literature. You can go through the literature and you can find the published values on phosphorus range from anywhere from 7 or 8 parts per million omega-3 to as high as maybe 32 or 3 in the literature, something like that. There's a range in there depending on the type of soil and the type of turfgrass and the location and everything else. And MLSN's 21. It's not that far off. Okay, potassium's 37. In the potassium literature, I don't think you really want to get much lower than about 40 or 50 to eliminate or to minimize winter kill in some areas. So I'm more comfortable at like 40 or 50. The literature will support me on that. And MLSN's at 37. The point is, it's not that far off. And if people follow the MLSN, they will result very likely in more efficient nutrient usage and very likely see no difference in the turf quality. If anything, you might see better turf quality if you're applying very, very high levels of potassium and now you've moved it down. You're not applying the potassium because we all know the increased risk of diseases that can occur when you're applying potassium at high levels when you don't need to. So his approach is going to result in people applying nutrients more efficiently. I think my approach is going to do the same thing. So he and I are on the same path. He just has a different approach. That's it. And then people are going to respond to his approach that might not respond to my approach. And people might respond to my approach that might not respond to his. People might respond to the people at the grass factory, and they're a little bit more salty with their language. There's going to be an audience that responds to that might not respond to me or Dr. Woods. So we need all viewpoints and all methodologies and all approaches to tackle this thing because we are losing. Go to South Carolina and try to find someone that's using the MLSN or find someone that's using the critical limits. They're saturated with base count saturation. We are losing. There's too many salesmen out there that are selling this nonsense. And there's too few of us that are trying to get people to follow the evidence and to apply nutrients in a manner in which is the most efficient, to not exceed the rate that the turfgrass can possibly take up. Okay. So there's no problem with me, well, at least from my perspective, there's no problem with me whatsoever with Dr. Woods. I don't agree with the MLSN methodology because the methodology has never been published. I wouldn't want to go to the doctor and have them give me something that's never been treated and published and confirmed to be true. I wouldn't want them to do that. Okay. And so I hold the same criteria for in my world. I don't condone base count saturation, because the evidence is greatly refuting. In the case of MLSN, there's no evidence for or against MLSN. I know there's a dissertation that's been published for MLSN, but there's no refuting evidence to MLSN, nor is there any really strong supporting evidence to MLSN. But the methodology has also never been published. With base count saturation, the methodology was at least published. So I have a strong scientific opinion on not accepting MLSN because the methodology has not been published. But the end result being the number values are so close to the published values, I'm all for that. Just do it. Okay, just do it, because we need all the help we can get to get people to become more efficient, follow best management practice, and reduce our environmental impact, and still produce the same exact quality turfgrass, if not better. Okay, that's my take on it. Okay, so the emails and comments I got about, is there any problem? From my perspective, there's zero problem. Dr. Woods can come on my show anytime he wants. He's got an open door policy. Come on. In fact, I need help with growth potential models. I need help understanding how to recommend nutrient applications based upon growth potentials. So maybe he can come on my show and help explain how to do that. We can all help the industry move forward a little bit further, because my approach might reach people that his approach doesn't, and vice versa. Okay. If there's any questions on that, let me know. But our scientific disagreements I don't want there to be any confusion. I am 100% in support of what he does and what the Grass Factor guys do and what Elevated Landscapes and all these other people do, because there's just too many different viewpoints, and not everybody's going to respond to me. I get accused of being arrogant, and that can turn people off. And I know that's a problem. In fact, the episode on, it's called Yes, I Am. I talked about my 6th grade science teacher who ridiculed me in front of the class because of my arrogance. Okay. It's not, I understand that's a problem for me, and it's something I'm trying to work on. And it's definitely a problem if the audience I'm trying to reach it turns them off. I don't want that to happen. But there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. And the way I speak, the way I kind of giggle after I talk, it can turn people off. I get that. It's a problem. I try to work on it. So some people aren't going to respond to that. Well, maybe that person responds to Dr. Woods. You follow my logic? Maybe that person, it's like, I get Travis, but he's too boring. I'd rather go watch the Grass Factor guys. Those guys are a little bit more spicy. Then go watch them. Okay? We need to be all on the same team here when it comes to getting the boat redirected in the right direction, because I can assure you there's a army of salesmen selling base count and saturation, and they far outnumber us. We need all the help we can get. Okay? All right. Enough about that. All right, next question. Oh, this is the last one. YouTube video comment. Now, I did a video, I guess it was, I've done several videos on the Earthworks guys. They're the ones that love to sell base count saturation and sell all this nonsense and sell calcium whenever your calcium's already over 2,000 pounds per acre. All this just crazy stuff. Perfect example of the army of salesmen we're up against. We're trying to fight this battle. We need a lot of help. So I've been doing a lot of videos showing how basic concentration is complete hogwash. It's nonsense. There's no supporting evidence. There's a lot of refuting evidence. And there was a comment made in one of Joel Simmons's new videos, and it was in a comment about my comments about him. And I'm telling you, if I'm lying, I'm dying. If I sat down and wrote the most perfect response to my comment, I could not have done a better job than this. It is absolute gold. And I'm going to let it play. It is fantastic. You're going to see 5 fallacies in about a minute and a half or 2, something like that. And one of them I've never come across ever in turfgrass science. And it's so strange or so rare, I couldn't even remember the name of it. I had to go look it up because I knew it was a fallacy. I just couldn't remember the name of it because it's a really strange word. So I'm going to let this play. I'm going to try my best to get through this and not interrupt it and then comment afterwards. But you know me, I'm going to have to pause it probably. Okay. Okay. So here it is. And then this will be the last comment. Please like and subscribe to the video and consider being a member. For those of you going to hang up and go as soon as we're done here, just keep in mind, I'll be back in the middle of January, and we'll continue on with our normal members only show and our normal show as well in the middle of January. So without further ado, the comments. This is the Earthworks podcast with Joel Simmons with Lawrence Mayhew, biological carbon fertilizers from the Earthworks channel. Responding to my comment.
There's a lot of consultants and successful farmers that follow the, how would you put this, advice?
Yeah, this person talking, his name's Lawrence Mayhew. I believe he's like the chemist for Earthworks, if I recall. I can't remember exactly. And then Joel Simmons is on the right.
Or research of Dr. William Albrecht. And that's what really started this whole thing of balance in these soil systems. And the Albrecht papers are still around. He proved that optimal plant growth, and he noticed later on that even the health of these plants would occur when the base saturation on the colloid system was right around 65% calcium and 15% magnesium.
Now, I've said before, and I've showed this for a month, where Dr. Albrecht did not prove that at all. He was delusional himself. He confused calcium saturation with the effect from soil pH. He was saying soil pH didn't do anything. Meanwhile, his data showed soil pH affected nodulation. Okay, so he was confused. He misunderstood his own data. Okay, I've shown that. I'm not going to argue that again. You can go back and read all the papers that I've gone over before. There's no debate. Just go read the papers. Just go watch the videos, okay? So he's saying he proved it. He didn't prove anything, okay? So we'll continue. Just to make sure we're clear. What he's saying is not true.
That's on a high CEC soil, but it works. And I've never not seen it work. Now, I've been criticized.
Okay, I've never not seen it work. Remember that.
Extensively through my entire career. And recently with our dear friend Travis, who is the smartest man in the room.
I can't make it through without pausing, man. I can't make it through without pausing. Just a little bit of sarcasm there, huh, Joel? Just a little bit, kind of getting under your skin a little bit. Nothing makes me more happy than this. Knowing that I'm just getting just twisting it just a little bit for him. He can't sit still. I'm getting a little bit under his skin. That's fantastic. I love it. So our friend Travis, there was already one fallacy committed, but we'll continue.
Telling everybody that it's been disproven when it hasn't been.
I'm not telling them at all. The evidence in the literature is saying that. All I'm doing is reading the literature. All you got to do is open up a literature, Joel. It goes back to the 1800s. There's not a single paper that's ever been published that supports it. Every paper. And it's hard. I've said this before. It's hard for me to say this because I'm sure someone somewhere can prove me wrong when I say all. I mean, that's a pretty strong statement. But all the literature refutes it. There's not a single reputable soil scientist that will say, yes, you should follow basic concentration. It's an efficient usage of your nutrients. None. Okay? But he's saying I'm saying it. Joel, I'm not saying it. All the literature is saying it's wasteful.
and spitting that stuff out there, but he's stalking us.
I'm stalking BS is what I'm stalking. I'm stalking nonsense. And if you happen to be the one spewing it out, you happen to be in front of me. That's what's going to be talked about.
And just on a rampage about why it doesn't work. And it's fascinating that somebody has to spend that much energy spewing, his hatred and
hatred. I don't hate you at all, Joe. I love you. You're a human being. I love all human beings. I take that back. There is one human and one person in is he in New Jersey now? I can't remember where he's at. No, he's in Boston? I can't remember. That one person comes really close to the H word for me. I'm like, and I don't hate anybody, but it come close with that gentleman. He's a real piece of work, a real snake, a real weasel, just a womanizer, just a piece of work. I don't hate anybody, Joel. I don't hate you at all. And I'm sincere. I don't hate you whatsoever. Okay, spewing my hatred. It's it's just joke. I mean, if you knew who I was and the effort and the time I put into my behavior as a humanist, you would know why that's so funny to me. It's just ridiculous. But man, I got him. I mean, we got him. He's not comfortable.
And really getting down on something as simple as this, when in fact, if you've done it, I've done it for 35 years. I mean,
okay, I've done it for 35 years. Remember that one.
And when I say I've done it, I've seen the results, like you said. I mean, when I asked you the question, how do we know balance of nutrients makes sense? It's because you've seen it.
Because I've seen it. That's number 3.
And we've, and yeah, can we tweak that? But once we see it working, yeah, we can expand from there, but at least we know we're at the place that we're supposed to be. And that's
how about the 800 people that are going to show up at Acres USA this week?
Right.
The 800 people. I'm going to choke. I'm sorry. Hang on a second. I almost choked on my cough drop. How about the 800 people? That's number 4.
And this is the driving force in that group. This has built industries.
Yeah.
That's number 5.
Has provided a college education for families. I mean, this works. I mean, there's no doubt in our minds, on our side of the table, that practice these techniques. Because as soon as we get these things out of balance, even if calcium goes higher than 65%, you have problems with
So what about all the publications where calcium's in the 80-90% in turfgrass? We've seen this. I've shown it on the channel, and it all looks good. So what about all those?
Your crops.
Yeah. Well, and again, it becomes not only a plant derivative thing, it's a physical thing as well. You get an imbalance in there. Now the soil becomes physically the impediment. It's the limiting factor because it becomes tight, compacted. Air and water doesn't go through. If we don't have air and water, we don't have soil biology. If we don't have biology, the biome is not doing its job. And, the enzymes aren't being produced. The amino acids aren't being released. The nutrients aren't being taken out of the mineral content. I mean, the whole system falls apart if there's not this level of what we keep using the phrase balance.
He just said this morning that he hasn't even seen a single soil test come in 15,000 a year for 30 years, and not one's come in ideal. So are all those completely falling apart that you just said? They'll all fall apart if they're not balanced.
And a balance is not just a chemistry. It's a chemistry, it's a physics, it's a biology.
Well, my point is he introduced this in 1939. And it didn't really become, let's say, well known until the 1970s, when Chuck Walters, the founder of Acres USA, interviewed Dr. William Albrecht back in the 70s, and Albrecht pretty well told him that this was not accepted by his peers.
Good.
Not at all.
I wish they would have buried it back then. We'd all be better off.
In some ways.
No, just not. But then Chuck Walters started spreading that information to, let's call it the eco-agricultural community.
Yeah.
And it just took right off. I mean, there are businesses that have been built on this. There's multi-million-dollar revenue companies that are built on this. How can you say that's not the truth?
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Okay, so I'm going to go back. Let's go back and recount exactly what happened. Joel said I've never not seen it work. We should play a game on this, but unfortunately there's a delay. So I can't, it's going to take me forever to say it. And then, you all respond. So when you ever hear someone say, I've never not seen it work, that's called the black swan fallacy. And what is the black swan fallacy? The black swan fallacy was, I don't know if it was in Russia or if it was in Europe somewhere, I think, where in Europe, all they ever saw was white swans. And it wasn't until, I think it was a Dutch explorer went to Western Australia, actually. And in Western Australia, there's black swans. Well, all they ever saw in Europe was white swans. So they said, there's no such thing as a black swan because I've never seen a black swan. And then you go down to Western Australia and you see black swans. So when you hear someone say, well, I've never not seen it work, that doesn't mean that it doesn't. So that's fallacy number one, the black swan fallacy. Thank you, Joel, for giving me that as an example. I haven't yet had come across that. There's a better one at the end, though. And then he says, well, we've been doing it for 30 years. That's an appeal to tradition. That's fallacy number two. Very common fallacy. We've been doing it for 30 years. I don't care if you've been doing it for 3 seconds. You could be correct. Or if you've been doing it for 30,000 years, you could be incorrect. The length of time someone's been doing it makes no difference as to the validity of the claim. None. Okay. Then he said, well, I've seen it. How do we know? Because we've seen it. That's an appeal to personal experience or an observation bias. So that's another fallacy, the fallacy of personal experience. Oh, I've seen it. I put it out and I saw it. It worked. That's an observation bias or a personal experience fallacy. And then he said, well, what about the 800 people that are showing up today? Right now in South Dakota, the Acres TV or the Acres Association is putting on their propaganda and their disinformation machines going on right now, convincing all these people they should be doing it. And what about all those 800 people are going to be shown? That's a bandwagon fallacy. It doesn't matter if there's one person following it or 8 billion people following it. One person could be right. Only Einstein was correct. Every other physicist in the world said Einstein was wrong, and they were all wrong. Einstein was the one that was correct. It doesn't matter the number of people who are engaging in a practice, who are claiming something to be true. That has no bearing on the validity of the truth claim. So all the 800 people is a bandwagon fallacy. This guy, Lawrence Mayhew, doesn't understand fallacious arguments. And then the greatest one was when Lawrence Mayhew said, well, there's businesses built on this. There's multi-million-dollar companies. People have gone to college on this. That is an argument called, I can't even pronounce it. I knew it existed, but I couldn't remember it because it's so hard to pronounce. It's called the argumentum ad criminum. And essentially, it's the argument to the purse or an argument for finance or an argument to money, meaning that because this person is very, very wealthy, therefore whatever he's doing must be true. And what he's saying is, well, all these companies are making millions and millions of dollars on it, therefore what they're doing must be true. That's an argument to the purse or an argument to money. I mean, how long did I spend, guys? A month or more going over soil testing and base cation saturation? And just hammering it, going over all the literature I could find, all the review papers. Each one of the review papers had 20 to 30 articles in each one of those. And we went over 2 or 3 of them. Went over the Olson 82 paper, went over the Bear 45 paper, went over some of the Albrecht papers. I mean, went over paper after paper after paper. And their response to that is, oh yeah, well, I've never not seen it work. We've all been doing it for 30 years. I've seen it work. There's 800 people showing up next week, and people make a lot of money on it, so it must work. That's your argument back? 5 fallacies in 2 minutes? I mean, come on, put some effort into the argument. Come on, guys. I spent over a month going over articles, scientifically peer-reviewed, published articles in top-tier journals, creating an argument that the base cation saturation is fraudulent, it's wasteful. It will result in good crops and good turf grass. It'll just do so for a lot more money and a lot more nutrients that are wasted. You should be using a critical limit approach or a slant approach, something like that. That's where the evidence is guiding us. I spent all that time doing that, and their argument back has 5 fallacies in 2 minutes. That's great. That's fantastic. Nothing could have there could not have been a better Christmas gift to me than that video. That is absolutely, thank you so much, Joe. Honestly, I couldn't have written a better response to me than that. Early Christmas to TravisShaddox. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Any questions in the chat that you want me to cover before I go? Let me Let me let me read them real quick. You guys just chatting about something else. Okay, Elevated Lawn Step says the Maryland blackout data was incorrect on the thing I put. It says Maryland's 4 pounds amount is over the Maryland regulation. Oh, thanks, Elevated Landscapes, for letting me know that. Oh, thanks, Chuck Benzie, for your membership. Thank you so much. It says Chuck Benzie says Dr. Woods did bash SLAN a bit. Yeah, well, see, I probably should be more specific with my language on that. When I say SLAN, I'm not actually referring to the actual values that SLAN generated. I'm referring to the concept of sufficiency levels. Sometimes I actually use the phrase critical limits as well. So I probably should be more specific with my language on that so there's no confusion. I'm not talking about the actual published SLAN values. I'm talking about the concept that there is a sufficiency level in the soil. And if you have that sufficiency level, then there is no need to apply more. In a sort of a roundabout way, the MLSN sort of comes to the same conclusion. Let's see. Oh, you like how I'm laughing? Yeah, some people respond to me laughing. Some people think it's arrogance, and I get it. I understand. It is, I try to limit that, but I do appreciate everybody's putting up with my personality. Great Fox, thanks so much. Have a great holiday to you too. Michael Comer says millions of people follow each religion. They can't all be right, but they can all be wrong. Think about that one before we go to Christmas. Not every religion can be simultaneously correct, but all of them can be simultaneously incorrect. And then happy holidays to everyone from Rob too, from me as well. Have a great Christmas. Have a great New Year's. There will be some videos sort of periodically released throughout the break. So I'm not going away per se. I mean, you'll still see a little bit of me here and there on the channel as videos get released occasionally. But I will be back. I don't have a date set yet, but it'll be the second or the third week in January. Really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much to the members and to all the subscribers and just the general viewers of this channel. Thank you so much for contributing to the channel and showing up and being here and chatting. Just the chats alone really, help me along, encourage me and help me realize that there are people really watching and there's people using this information. It really means a lot to me. I'm glad this is the end of the second season. This is the last episode. We'll start season 3 next year, and we'll just keep the train rolling in the right direction. Okay, guys and gals, thank you really from the bottom of my heart. Thanks so much, and I hope everybody has a good holiday season. I'll see you back at the end or at the beginning of next year. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.